Alright, Varmint Bilinear Bass Amplifier XL-100. Manufactured by Brewer Labs, Porter, Oklahoma. I don't remember when exactly these things were made, but maybe somebody else can chime in with that. I've tended to stay away from Varmint amps for really two main reasons. I buy a lot of these things. Really, they're collector's pieces for me to kind of play with here and there. You know, I don't necessarily intend to run this guy every day, along with a lot of the other stuff I've got to show you, or that I have shown you. So really, it's just for me to kind of have as part of my collection. I like collecting this stuff, obviously. And when I see a lot of Varmint amps for sale on eBay or at Hamfests or wherever, a lot of times they tend to be in really bad shape. They seem to run between, you know, being really beat up, and then every once in a while you'll see one that's in immaculate condition. Same thing with DNA amps. I don't have a DNA, so you know. That's partially why. You know, a lot of them are really beat up, and I kind of like them to look decent, both inside and out. And you know, technical performance comes first, but at the same time, you know, you want to be looking at something that looks nice, that's not all beat up. Number two reason why I kind of shy away from Varmints is that when I was first getting into radio, first getting into CB, back in the probably around 1994, 95, and CB, at least what I had read, was kind of seeing a resurgence. And I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I lived there for about a year. And Raleigh had, I guess it was something of a holdover from the 70s when CB was huge. Raleigh had a really, really big CB scene, at least compared to, you know, what you have today. There were at least 2 or 3 local channels. The big one I remember being Channel 35. Some guys that used to hang out on 38 lower sideband who were running, you know, really nice gear, and a lot of people who really knew technical stuff and really knew what they were talking about. And at the same time, a lot of people who kind of thought they did and you know, repeated the same old CB lore. But everybody I seemed to talk to, and when I heard them on the air at the same time, everybody I seemed to talk to said that Varmint amps were very dirty. Now, as most of you know, CB amps, or, you know, 10 meter or whatever you want to call them, amplifiers, are not necessarily that clean, or clean at all. They're 9 times out of 10 seem to be made to put out a lot of power, regardless of, you know, cleanliness and splatter and so on and so forth. You can even look online today, and, you know, forums that are out there, people will talk about these Varmint amps and say, yeah, it puts out a lot of power, but my neighbors hate me. So that was one of the things that, you know, another one of the things that made me stay away from Varmint amps. But this XL-100, I'd never seen one before, and I thought it looked interesting, and the price was right. I don't think I paid more than $50 for this. I'd have to go back and take a look. So I picked it up. And it's a neat little amp. It runs 2 6K V as in Victor 6 tubes, which I'll show you in a bit. You know, the case is in really good condition. The graphics on the front are in pretty good condition. The inside looks great. It's really, really clean, and that's one of the things that's really unfortunate about a lot of amps all across the board. You know, most of you know, this tube equipment, you need to have a nice vented case for it so it stays cool. And that, of course, so means that you can get moisture and dust, and then it just sits in there and cakes, and everything gets rusty, and they just look terrible, and, you know, sometimes they're not even worth restoring unless the thing's, like, really, really rare and interesting. But one of the things I thought was really interesting about this amp when I got it, and it was a source of problems, that I plugged it in, turned it on, it worked. I went to go move it, plugged it back in again, and it didn't work. It's got this power plug, this relatively fat power plug, and if you look on the front, those 2 silver dots next to the prongs are actually fuses. So you slide 2 glass fuses in here, and that's how the whole thing's fused. There's no fuse holder in the back or anything like that. I don't know if this is original. I kind of hope it is, because if not, that would mean that this thing was supplied with a an unfused plug, or, you know, without a fuse in it. But the problem with this is that the wires on the lamp cord here are just wrapped around 2 screws on each prong to hold it in. And that's pretty normal for replacement plugs and so on and so forth. I mean, everybody's seen that before. But in this case, this one comes loose a lot, and it seems to. I actually had started making a video on this guy a few minutes ago, and went to go plug it in and it didn't work. So I started over. But with that being said, let me give you a look at the inside real quick, and then I'll plug it in, see if it works, see if the plug's working, and I'll do a little test with it. This is another one of my amps that's not a real loud talker. Most of the ones I have are not, you know, not big, crazy, overpowered amplifiers. You know, more or less because I'm collecting these just for the collection factor, and not necessarily to use, although I do intend to use a couple of them when I actually get a station set up. I know my bench is really dirty, but that's how a bench is supposed to look. Alright, let's see. There's your tubes right there. No plate cap, as you can see. There's a high voltage cap down here, 100 microfarads, 350 volts, and then you've got 3 more on this board here. I think this is the transmit relay, and this is for the preamp. I don't think the preamp works, but I never use them anyway, so, you know, that's whatever. And this board has all the rest of the, you know, the rest of the components on it and everything. Typical Pi network. Let me see which one is which. That's your plate, there's your load, and then down here at the bottom, this is one of the things I really like about this amp. Let's see if I can get that out of the way. One of the things I really like about this amp, it's got an input tune control right here. And, you know, a lot of amps, if they have that, it's inside, or they don't have one at all. So, this one I like. At the expense of a few watts, I can get this thing down to about 1.2, maybe 1.5 if I want to get, like, squeeze an extra watt or 2 out of it. And let me turn the back around, and I'll show you what it looks like on the back. I'm not a huge fan of 2 things when it comes to this amp, or really any amp. Let's see. I don't like having the plate and load controls on the back, and I don't like them when they are these little, you know, trimmer cap looking things right here, where you need to use a screwdriver. Don't use a screwdriver. Get yourself a set of trimmer adjustment tools. These black ones here that I have actually have a little metal end on them, and they seem to work really well for these, but they're insulated the rest of the way through. So that's that. Gives you another shot there. Nothing really all that special. RF indicator lamp. This is kind of a pain to take apart. I wanted to make sure everything was straight with it, and I tried to take this board out. I really have to take the transformer out and then undo the board and pull it out. The PL259, or I'm sorry, the SO239s are also soldered directly to the board. Never been huge on that. Thing falls off a table and you crack, you know, you crack the connectors off the board. So here, let me get it turned back around for you. Plug it in, and if that plug doesn't give us any trouble, then we'll see if it warms up, and I'll do a quick little test. I'm going to use this Palomar Model 500. Imagine there's better amplifiers out there that I could use. Or, I'm sorry, better meters that I could use, but this is the only one I have that has a nice large meter, so you can actually read it, hopefully. Make sure it's off. And we'll plug it in. And it's working. While it warms up, here I'll just show you what I'm going to be running into it. Just an old junky Uniden PC122 XL. No real mods to it. I have the power turned down to about 2 watts, 2.5 watts, I think, something in there. Something around in there. I don't really like to kill these amps, and it's never a good idea. Little crappy PDC-5 watt meter underneath, just so I can see what the power coming out of the radio looks like without flipping the amp off and the into standby. Plus, I can also monitor the you know, what the input SWR looks like. So that's it for the test radio. That's pretty much what I use most of the time. Either this Palomar meter for higher powered stuff. I also have a Diamond SX-200 that I use for other lower powered stuff. I usually use that one most of the time. I think it's a little bit more accurate than the Palomar. Plus, it's got a peak reading setting on it, which the Palomar does not. It's going into a dummy load. It's this old Decibel Products load that I got somewhere. So if we're all warmed up here, let's see what we can do for power. Coming out of the radio, about 2 watts, nothing really crazy. It sounds like it's arcing a little bit. That's not good. But as you can see on the meter, if you can't read that too well, 40 watts is about here, 60 watts is about here, 80 watts is about here, and then, well, that's where the scale ends at 100. There's 10 and 20, just for reference. As you can see, we're swinging it, well, we're not swinging anywhere, but it's getting up to about 40 watts. Let's see. Get focus there. There you go, a little under 40. Looks good. This amp also has sideband delay. So let me move this over here. And I'll show you what it looks like on sideband. It gets up to about 60. You know, again, not a real crazy loud talker, but it's kind of a fun little amp to play with. $60 on the dot. So yeah, that's it. Varmint XL-100 works good. I like got another thing to add to my collection here and break out and play with every once in a while. So yeah, that's it. Have any other questions, or if you have any information on this amp? I am kind of still looking for a schematic for it. I think I have one. I need to go back and check my computer and see if I actually pulled down the right one. If you do have a schematic for it, that'd be great. If you have any other information on this amp or the company or anything like that, I'd like to know it. You know, I'm again trying to gather as much information on these old things as I can, just to kind of preserve them and have the information for myself, that sort of thing. Thanks for watching.